Hi, how you doing? Well, the entity situation on Earth is worse than you think, but I guess it's time to tell you how it is, but this comes with a warning. You have to be strong of heart or have a pretty good grasp of reality and what things are about and how things work to listen to this stuff, because it's creepy, okay? But I'm going to show you a technique that you can use if you have a vivid imagination. This technique you can use to help deal with your entity issues and give you some relief, release, a little peace of mind, and a new sense of empowerment that, damn, there's something you can do about this entity issue. Okay, so here we go. I'm gonna try to keep it short, but here's the thing. If you look up the definition of the word tulpa and the definition of the word egregor, you will find that it's been known for a long time, maybe thousands of years, that entities can be created with your imagination. And then there's entities that are created with the group consciousness or the group unconsciousness. The group think, the group mind creates entities. Now, here's the thing. Entities are real and they really bother people. Some people can see the entities. Sometimes they will materialize in their bedrooms when they're sleeping or just waking up or just going to sleep. And there's just all kinds. There's reptilian entities, physical and non-physical. There's grays, physical, non-physical. There are mantis and other insectoid beings. There's men in black. There's shadow beings. There are all kinds of ETs. Some in human form, some in non-human form, extraterrestrial, but they are also extra-dimensional or multidimensional, in that they can consciously materialize into this realm we call physical reality, and they can interact with us. Sometimes they will materialize or come to us in the dream state. The body's asleep. You are half awake, half asleep, and you're dreaming. You think it's a dream, but they are coming to you in an environment that either you imagined and created by yourself or your subconscious, or it's a reality system, belief system territory, astral plane, density realm, something like this, that was already created with the imagination of those beings that live there and use it as their local universe or local physical reality experience. But that realm that you wake up in, or you are in a sort of half asleep, you think you're dreaming, and now you're encountering an entity, whether it's a reptilian, it's a gray, it's an insectoid, it's a ghost, it's the apparition of your dead grandmother, and it could be your real grandmother or somebody faking it. It can be angels, angelic beings, devils, demons, all of this stuff, right? You can experience entities in that way. And then you can have the out-of-body experience or the consciousness shift into another realm. And there you are, wide awake, fully aware, and you're interacting with other humans in a great, wonderful world. It's a really great out-of-body experience, or an astral travel in an astral plane full of human beings that are wonderful, loving, summer land, beautiful or creepy, all kinds of ways, right? But the entities we want to talk about are those that are targeting you, or they're getting into your head space and they're putting thoughts in your head. You think they're your thoughts, or you know they're not your thoughts, but they're in your head and you think the thoughts are being thought and you go, this is not me thinking this. It comes in so many different ways. And this is what I was talking about, be careful. This is This is out there. This is high up there. You got to have an understanding and a deeper grasp of reality. Now, I'm going to tell you something really creepy. You're being warned. You might want to turn this off right now. It's going to get creepy and you're going to go, ugh. But I want to tell you because I think it's time people on earth need to know this shit. And two, there are many techniques that you can learn that can help you help yourself get rid of entities. All right. And I'm going to share one with you. And I'm going to share it briefly. I can't take, a whole hour to show you how to do it thoroughly, but I can give you the short, quick and dirty technique. And then you can, oh yeah, I get it. And then you can go ahead and use it to get rid of certain kinds of entities. All right. So let me tell you a story, right? This is before, in 1984, I didn't know about entities until later in 1984. I learned about them and it was like in your face, learned about them. I had been doing past life regression work and I had been looking at implants and implant stations, hardcore pain and drug and hypnosis and MK Ultra style programming and implanting of auto suggestions and all this kind of creepy shit. Back millions of years ago, they used to pound this shit into our heads really hard and really hardcore. So if you got an invading force invading your planet and your population, if you lose, the entire population is likely to get implanted and programmed. And they can do it in mass. They can do it with thousands and thousands of people all at once. But millions and millions of years, millions of lifetimes, some of us have been experiencing this kind of wild and crazy experience in this universe and in the higher, greater universes out. And that's a whole nother story, how they blend. But back in 1984, when I first learned about this stuff, I had been doing this past life regression and implant traumatic incident reduction sort of work. And then I finally graduated from that level and I'm ready for my next level. And I'm going, okay, lay it on me. And my teacher or mentor set me down in front of her desk. This was in Los Angeles. And she says, well, I really don't know how to tell you this, but now that you've done all that work, there's another level. And sometimes you have thoughts or feelings and they don't resolve doing all that past life regression work that you've done and all that other spiritual work and removing implants and all that. It doesn't always resolve because there are other beings in your space. I'm going, what? So sometimes you will have thoughts and you will think they're your own. I'm going, are you saying there are entities in my head? Are in what? She goes, yeah. And I'm going, oh, fuck. I thought I was almost done with all this work I'd been doing, hundreds and hundreds of hours. Come to find out, there's a whole new level. And I put hundreds of hours into the new level of entity work, entity release techniques, and all this. What I found out was that I found out about tulpas, which are entities created with the imagination, and they can manifest and materialize. You and I are even considered tulpas. We are entities created with the imagination because this world is created with the imagination. We agree upon it and it becomes our reality because we agree that it is real. Okay, it's kind of like that. So I find that not only are there these kinds of entities that are human beings, and all these ETs and the physical human beings, but there are incorporeal beings or entities. They float around like little thought balls, little floaty bubbles, or little thought clouds. And some of these entities were once human beings in physical bodies, but long, long ago. Are you still with me on this crazy story? This is so fucked up. This is messed up. There are so many different kinds of fucking entities. How many times I got to say that, right? But sometimes when people die, they are so traumatized and messed up, they don't know which way's up. And they can get captured and programmed and contained. So there's advanced technology. Different races have these technologies to capture beings that are non-physical. They're not in a physical body. They're floating around, or they might be in their astral or something like that. So let me give you a for instance, and I'm going to tell you this, and then I'm going to tell you about a technique that you can use to undo this. It's going to be the brief technique. If you would like a session with a training session with Agvila and I, we will, and if you're up for, if you're advanced enough, if you qualify for it, you have to have a good visual ability. You have to be able to see visuals pretty well. All of this, but if you'd like a session like that, a training session, there'll be a link down there. But I'm going to share it here with you, and some of you will be, oh, I get it, and you can use this technique, okay? But this shit is creepy, way past fucking creepy. We passed creepy a little while ago, okay? Here's the thing. Let's take a for instance. You can have a whole spacecraft. Let's say there's 10,000 human beings on the spacecraft. And let's say it's about 20 million years ago. Some galaxy far, far away, or it could be in this galaxy, some place far from here. But galactic war ensues. You are on a spaceship full of good guys. Now, let's not put you in the story. Let's not do that right now. There's a spaceship full of good guys, and they're fighting the bad guys, and they get their shit beat. Okay, so the bad guys have these different advanced technologies. They can take an energy field, like a net, and grab up all the dead people. Let's say they blew the ship up, killed everybody on the ship. So physical body's expired. The being leaves the physical body in an astral body or some energy form. And before they can get away, some of them can get away. Some people are sharp enough, smart enough, advanced enough, understand life well enough. They can get away and they're not going to be trapped by this energy field. But this energy net goes around the spacecraft or the exploded bits of it, and they capture all 10,000 of the crew in their non-human form. Without getting into the details, there's techniques where they can kind of pressure cook all these beings, all these human beings, the captain and the crew and the janitor and the gunner and the fucking intelligence officer, everybody's, and put under pressure and implanted like MK Ultra energy beams and hypnotic commands and all kinds of crazy shit. And there's different kinds of those, different techniques. They lay in different ways. There's different kinds of implants in that way. Well, I'll tell you about that in another video another day. But now, this 10,000 crew complement can stay this way for like 10,000 years, 100,000 years. And at first it can be all confused and messed up. And they're hearing each other's thoughts, they're feeling each other's emotional pain, confusion and everything. Well, after a few thousand years, things kind of settle down and they're already blended into a cluster, but now they start thinking more organized. And so there's a thought and everybody thinks it's their own thought. There's a blending and a melding of different individual beings such that it seems like the cluster is one individual now. Does that make sense? So the cluster, although it might be still contained in its trap, and go, I got to get out of here. It used to be, we got to get out of here. Now it's like, I got to get out of here. And so maybe somehow it gets released or let go on purpose, or there's an accident or something blows up the container, and this cluster gets away. This cluster of consciousness that used to be 10,000 different points of view are now one point of view. So by some definitions and meaning of being a person or an individual, it's experiencing one point of view. So this is my one point of view. I can see one point. Well, there could be 10,000 other beings with the same one point of view. And they all experience the same thing. They feel the same emotional response. After a while, after being acclimatized or acclimated to the condition of being clustered. And of course, they've been mind wiped and blanked out and amnesia and stuff. And they don't even remember the accident or that they're a cluster or nothing, but there they are. So now you've got a cluster being running around doing shit. Now, this cluster being, two ways it can get into your space as a cluster of 10,000, thinking it's one. It can see, you can be thinking things or feeling things, doing things, wanting things that it wants, it feels, it thinks. There'll be something that you have in common with the entity or the entity has in common with you. And whatever it might be, this entity can get into your realm or your space, and it can attach to you because of that commonality. And now it will blend with you in such a way that when you think a thought, it thinks the same thought. When it has a feeling, you have a feeling. When you have the feeling, it has the feeling. Your beliefs become its beliefs. Its beliefs can become your beliefs. So there's that blending, and now you've got entity shit in your space, and you got 10,000 fucking individual entities clustered into one clusterfuck in your fucking head, in your space. And it may be afraid of tight spaces. And you as an individual, before you got this cluster, may have been afraid of tight spaces. You could have had a traumatic incident of your own in this life or an earlier life, but now it's been triggered in such a way that you don't like tight spaces. Yeah, but you just don't like it. And so you get into a place in your life without this entity anywhere around you, but now you get all triggered and now you're all, ooh, tight spaces. Maybe you're in an elevator or something and it stops, it gets stuck or something, doesn't matter. But you're, and it just so happens that this particular entity cluster is now in your space. It sees you and it can relate to that. And it's looking for a human host. It wants to be human, something like this. It could be all kinds of different ways it can play out, but wham, the next thing you know, you got this entity also afraid of tight spaces and crowded spaces and all of this. And it has an emotional fear response, just similar to your own. Now, let's say you go through a few more years of your life and you're dealing with your issue with being afraid of tight spaces, clusters, and afraid of heights, whatever it happens to be. And you do your work. You do your past life regression work, or you do your inner work, whatever you do. And for you, it went away. It didn't touch the entity's issue of getting clustered, shit blown up, caught in a net, turned into a fucking clusterfuck. None of that. So you still have that case. You still get thoughts and feelings of not liking tight spaces, not liking being crowded and stuff like that. So it didn't go away completely. You might have got a little relief, but it comes back, or maybe it didn't even go away. And you go, what's wrong with me? It's not what's wrong with you. The entity is in your space. You're misidentifying its shit with your own. And now, if you're unaware of such things, you think you're still fucked up in this regard. The fix is to understand the entity phenomena, understand the various kinds of entities and how they can get into your space. There's more ways for them to get in your space, and there's more ways that they can get clustered. I'm just giving you a representative one way it's done. And the fix, the one I want to share with you, you ready for the fix? Okay, here we go. One, you have to be aware of this phenomena and how it works. And now you are, because you heard this. You've got to be able to communicate to the entities, and you have to be in good enough shape, strength of character, willpower, discipline, resolve, commitment, presence, awareness, whatever you need personally, you need to be able to be the awareness that you are and be the facilitator or guide or counselor to the cluster. The cluster thinks it's you most of the time. There are clusters that know they're not you, and they're just fucking with you. But that's another story and another technique, and another way to do it. If this cluster thinks it's you now, and it's afraid of crowded spaces, and you have to go like this. You go, okay, where is this cluster in my space? And you got to have the awareness and the ability to scan your body, and you scan your space, and you get a sense, oh, it's right here. And how big is it? Oh, it's this big. Okay. And you can use different kind of biofeedback approaches, or intuition, intuitive, whatever works for you, to determine the answers to some of these questions if you can't psychically or telepathically pick up the answer right away. But this is advanced techniques, and it's probably would be good if you do have that ability, at least to a degree, to differentiate yourself as awareness, being the guide, coach, facilitator for the entity in your space. It's right here, and you go, okay, there you are. Hello, hello. Are you an entity, or are you a cluster? I'm a cluster. You'll get it. It won't be words normally. It'll be telepathic, but it could be words, internal, subvocal words. And then you can check with, okay, how many are you? And you will either get a sense of it and say, what, you're like 1,000? And you get this, you'll get a sensor feel, or you'll have a biofeedback mechanism, muscle testing, pendulums. There's different meters that you can use, but you get a sense. More than 1,000? Yeah. More than 2,000? Yeah. 3,000? Yeah. More than 5? Yeah. Is this 10,000? Yeah. Is it more than 10,000? Yeah. Is it more than 15? No. And you go back and forth, and you wiggle it down, and you, okay, it's less than 11,000. Yeah. Okay, between, and then a number might pop up for you. And you go, is this 10,351? Yes. And just spotting the number in this cluster, you being the awareness and not the cluster, can wake the beings up that have been snoozed hypnotic tranced, amnesia, fucked up, you can start waking them up just by spotting the number of them. And some of them will wake up and they will be able to separate out from the cluster and leave. And so the cluster will be smaller now. But now what you do is you talk to the in charge. There will usually, almost always, be someone, one entity or being that is in charge. And it'll be one of the group. It's like you got a team and you got a team captain, kind of like that. Or a crew and a crew chief. So anyway, you say, oh, I'd like to talk to who's in charge. And usually that beingness, you'll intuitively get it. What do you want or what? And then you sit there and you have a two-way communication experience with the in charge or the captain who's in charge of this cluster, is running the show, and the others are listening to or deferring to. And as you're having this conversation telepathically, you can have it out loud. You can say, hey, who are you? I'm the boss. You can say that out loud, or you can have it internally in talking to yourself in words, or you can do it simply telepathically, without any words. That's your, whatever your style is. But what you're going to do is you're going to wake up the captain or the in charge. And while you're doing that, you're waking up others. And as they wake up, they figure out what's going on. Just like you wouldn't want to be stuck in somebody else's fucking world in their head. If you woke up to what, and you go, what the fuck, I'm out of here. So that's what happens. These beings can leave. Okay. All right. So you're breaking up the cluster, entity cluster, but you're still talking to the in charge. And now you can ask, I'm going to rattle off the things you can ask it. Sometimes you don't have to ask all these things. You just have to ask enough to wait till you feel like that whole entity cluster has and left your space. Okay. But here's things you can ask. You can ask, what is your intentions toward me? If you're going to learn how to do this and you want to do it on your own, just start writing, pause the video here and start writing some of these questions and things you can do. You can ask, what is your intentions toward me? What do we have in common? You can break that down. What is our common emotion? Do we have a common intention? Do you and I, do we have a common belief? Do we have a common fear? Ooh, yeah, we're afraid of tight spaces. Oh, yeah. And that will wake up some more and they'll start leaving. So intentions, emotions, beliefs. Now you can, if you're good at this, or if you're a good facilitator, you're a good listener. The essence of this technique is that you've separated yourself out from the entity cluster, and you're able to communicate to it in a way that you're helping it wake up. And in this particular technique, you don't use force, you use kindness, you use compassion, caring, understanding, and you communicate to them in that way so that they feel safe in your space, and you don't piss them off, they don't piss you off. And then you communicate with them and you help them understand why they are here. How did they get here? And you could even ask them, well, what happened? So, well, the last thing I remember, I was the captain of a ship. Really? Tell me more about that. Well, it was space war. We got in a big fight and it looked like we were going to lose. And the next thing I know, I'm sensing an explosion, and then I'll wake up here. What the fuck? You see, so you are doing a traumatic incident reduction sort of thing with the captain of the cluster of the ship that got fucking captured and squished into a fucking entity cluster and contained for about 10 million years, whatever. Okay. So you are helping a lot of other beings wake up and be individuals once again. And they could get a life in the physical world, getting born into a human body. But if they're smart, they're going to take off and go find someplace else to play human in. So that's basically the technique. You can ask them from your perspective, what seems to be the problem regarding the issue of being afraid of tight spaces. And they might just come up with, well, I'm just realizing now I've been in a tight space with all these other entities in my space. Now that, as you and it are talking, you and the captain are talking, that's waking up other beings, and they're going to start leaving. Beings, when they wake up, they don't like the uncomfortable or difficult situation that they are in. So that alone helps them release and get relief and get out of your space. And you feel the relief and the release too. Okay, now this is just one kind of entity and one technique that you can use. All right. Now, if you'd like to get a session with us, we can show you some more ways to get some fucking relief from these motherfuckers. There are different kinds of entities too. It's not just these poor souls that got fucking caught. There are some demons and they're fucking pricks and ETs, all kinds of guys and gals. But if you'd like to learn more about this stuff, it's possible, but you do have to have a greater level of awareness and a depth of understanding of reality and beingness and consciousness and beings and this sort of thing. Okay, I'm going to give you one more quickie technique, different from the last one. This one has to do with the power of your imagination. Now, to really grasp that so that you can do entity work on yourself, I highly recommend Googling the book, Awakened Imagination by Neville Goddard. He will give you a good idea, a grasp on the power of your imagination. And then with that, and the technique I'm going to share with you here, you can start using your vivid imagination to get rid of entities, deal with entities and things like this. Now, the reason you can use your vivid imagination to get rid of entities is because they live in a realm that is created with the imagination, and they themselves are created with the imagination. Once again, look up the definition, tulpa, T-U-L-P-A, and look up the definition of egregor. Entities are created with the imagination. Reality, this reality that we live in, is created with our imagination. Our thoughts, our beliefs, our agreements, our decisions. This is a matrix reality. This is a thought form reality, which means your imagination. So when you understand that your imagination is creating all of this stuff, including your worst fucking nightmare and your best day, when you deal with entities, they are more intimately connected with the reality, the knowing, and the understanding that they are the effect of your powerful imagination. They don't live in the physical world. They live in a non-physical realm where your imagination is used to create dreamscapes. You create things, you imagine things, and you see it clearly and vividly. It's not physical, but you can touch it and feel it. some people are able to, with their vivid imagination, create what you call a second life or an alternate reality, like the book, the story, The Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Falls asleep on the train, he wakes up halfway home after work, steps off the train and goes into his own imagined realm, and he lives it. People really do that. I know plenty that are actually doing that. So these entities live or float through, go through, visit these realms, and they are subject to your imagination. They're hoping that you don't know how powerful your imagination is, and they're hoping that you do not connect with the idea that you can get rid of them simply with your imagination. They don't want you thinking that. They want you to think all kinds of shit, and they can put thoughts in your head and feelings in your space, but you can do this. You can use your vivid imagination, and you imagine, okay, this will be another technique for handling the same cluster that we talked about before. 10,000 crew of spacecraft get clustered together for whatever, and now they're in your space, and you got this fear of tight spaces and fear of crowds and being crowded. It just stirs your shit up. Okay. So, new technique. You can use your imagination, and you just close your eyes, go into your meditative or comfortable, relaxed state, and you imagine, because this is reality, this creates reality in other realms, you see. So you imagine that you are not this cluster. This clustered beingness is another individual. And you can do are you an individual or a cluster? How many are you? Blah, 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 blah. And if they say they're an individual, it's even easier. It doesn't matter if they're an individual or a cluster. If it's a cluster, you get the in charge. If it's an individual, you just talk to the individual. And so you got your eyes closed and you imagine the individual or the captain or the in charge. And you imagine, you ask them what seems to be the problem? What happened? Well, the problem is that I'm concerned about tight spaces. And well, why is that? Well, and they go, I don't know. Well, were you, was there a traumatic incident where you got crammed into a tight space? And this facilitator mode where you ask questions to the entity or cluster is the way that you use your imagination. Now, whatever pops up, let's say you see the idea of him being clustered with 10,000 other people and cramped into, some tight space. You may think it's just your imagination. And you go, oh, I'm just imagining this shit. Yes, you are. But you imagined every day of your life in this world. You're just doing it unconsciously. Me too. Your past lives, it's all in your imagination. If you recall a past life and you don't know if it was real or not, you got to ask yourself, what's real versus what's imaginary? And how does something imaginary become real? And do you mean real in the physical world context, or you mean real as a touchy-feely experience? See, so you want to have this level of understanding about life and consciousness and reality. But then if you've got some of that and you've got this vivid imagination, you can just imagine this guy and take it from there. Oh, all right. You got caught in a web. You got cluster fucked, I see. Yeah. When was that? Answer, 10,500,053 years ago. Okay. Let's move to that incident. Let's take a look at that. When you're using your imagination, and it doesn't matter if this entity, this captain, this in charge guy gives you the answer and you telepathically get the moment and see the ship getting blown up, or see on the monitor, or see the other spacecraft out there coming at you and shooting you up. Doesn't matter if this entity or in charge shoots you that image and you see it, or if you simply imagine that it happened that way. Now that's what they stumble on this part, where they think, oh, this can't possibly be real. What if this is just my imagination? It doesn't matter. It does not matter. Okay. You picked off the incident. What matters is having a little confidence or faith in yourself and the process. So you imagine whoa, there it is. Whoa. And you go, okay, well, how long did that take? How long was that incident? Well, it lasted about 10,000 years, didn't it? Or no, 10 million years. And so you scan, or you ask the entity or the captain to scan the incident. And well, we go, and then this happened and that happened. And then you run it as if you're the captain, or you just be quiet and let the captain guy tell you about it. Or you imagine the captain guy is telling you about it, but you go scan through, most of the time we were fucking asleep, so it didn't really matter. It was just all dark and a lot of confusion, blah, 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 blah. And you run this fucker. Or you help the captain, the in charge of this cluster, run the incident out. Traumatic incident reduction sort of stuff. He wakes up more, he snaps out of it, he pops out of the trance state, the hypnotic state, the implanted unconscious state. These beings start freeing up and you feel it. It's your relief. That worry and concern, or that fear of tight clustered spaces, dissipates. It goes away because it wasn't you anymore. It was these beings and you were feeling their pain. So now you're free of their pain. And that's the value in learning a technique like this. If you're spiritually ready for it, if you're understanding and ready for it and can do it and learn this technique, and then this will give you that kind of relief. Now, these kinds of entities and entity clusters are responsible for many, many of our aches and pains and migraine headaches and conditions, and also our circumstances, relationship issues, financial issues, health issues, all kinds of issues. It could be individual entities or clusters of entities. And again, we've just talked about kind of like one kind of entity as a technique. So to deal with that kind of entity, you're using your vivid imagination. And you can also, as you near the end, you can start imagining that the entities, the crew, have woken up. They're actually very awake now. You consciously use your imagination and imagine the outcome that you would like to see in your entity release session that you do on yourself, by yourself. So you imagine these beings waking up. You imagine the smiley faces and the beaming, and they see you and they go, oh my God, finally, thank you. And you imagine them taking off. And you imagine some of them saying, hey, how can we repay you? Or we're going back, we're going to find another ship, we're going to get back in the game, and we're going to do what we do for the light side, right? You consciously imagine the outcomes that you would like, including your headspace clear of that issue and those beings and that cluster. And then you can use little things like, you can say to yourself, isn't it wonderful that I freed up so many great and wonderful beings? And you get the sense and the feel of having done what you just said you did. Isn't it wonderful that I can now deal with entities with this new technique. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great? So you want to match a feeling with the words and the idea of the outcome that you want, as if the outcome has already happened. So you're imagining the outcome to manifest the outcome. So you imagine it as if it's already happened. You imagine and get in touch with the feelings as if you've already cleared these entities, helped wake them up and got them out of your space. And that's basically this technique, okay? And this is covered also in the Neville Goddard teachings on how to manifest. So this is for you. Good luck, and hope I didn't stir up too many people that weren't quite ready for this. But if we did, you can get a session with Vila and I, and we'll teach you how to fix it, and we'll help you clear that stuff out of your space. All righty. Okay, then. Thank you for watching. And the entity situation on Earth is way more than most people think it is. But there are ways to deal with it and fix it and change it. Basically, it's with your imagination, because that is creating all of reality. All right. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you later, okay? Okay, bye-bye.